NATO foreign ministers held an informal meeting in Prague to celebrate Czechia's 25th anniversary of NATO membership. The primary purpose of the meeting was to discuss allowing Ukraine to use Western weapons donated to Ukraine against military targets inside Russia. The issue of Ukraine's weapons usage has become more poignant in recent weeks after Russian forces attacked Kharkiv, which included artillery firing within the borders of Russia. The West decided to impose restrictions on the use of some of the weapons donated to Ukraine to avoid escalating the war with Russia. Ukrainian-manufactured weapons, along with the Ukrainian army and Russian rebels, were allowed to launch cross-border attacks. The Russian spring offensive has begun and is pressuring Ukrainian forces across the front. The most attention-grabbing attack has been the Russian attack on Ukraine's second-largest city, Kharkiv. The Russian attack on Kharkiv witnessed troop movements within the Russian borders and were off-limits from a Ukrainian preemptive strike or counterattacks. The overall state of the Ukrainian armed forces is also a concern. The deficiency of manpower among the Ukrainians and the lack of equipment due to delays from the US and Europe have posed challenges for Ukraine's self-defense. Western aid is now on its way, but the Ukrainians need to use the donated weapons to maximum effect to compensate for their manpower shortages and the spring and summer offensives from a large Russian army that must be defended against. As a result, they have been lobbying for freer use of donated weapons against Russian targets. The decision to release restrictions on weapons use in the ongoing conflict between Russia and Ukraine is up to the country that donates the weapons, with no unanimous consent from all NATO members required. This is due to stipulations in sales of weapons to NATO members, such as the restriction on selling advanced weapons systems without U.S. consent. Some NATO countries, including the U.S., are concerned about escalating the war with Russia and oppose the use of Western-donated weapons against Russian soil. President Biden and his National Security Advisor, Jake Sullivan, are leading this cautious approach to keep the war within the boundaries of Ukraine. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz also cautions against the use of German weapons against targets in Russia. The U.S. and Germany have announced that they will allow the use of its weapons against targets in Russia, but there are stipulations. The extent of the use of U.S. weapons against Russian troop gathering on the Russian side of the border and targets in Ukraine remains unclear. The question of how deep into Russia is considered eligible for attack and the status of Russian airfields remains open. The US and Germany's decisions were not fully what the French, UK, or NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg wanted, as they requested unrestricted use of donated weapons. France maintains that Russian escalation threats are genuine and have been present since the start of the war. While the approval of using Western weapons against military targets within Russia makes military sense, there is a risk involved, as the West previously made it clear that they would not use donated weapons in attacks on Russian soil.